What's going on, my man? How you
Oh
doing?
man, all good, man. Hey, we're here for talk about our weekly Warriors talk. This
Yes.
is something we're doing every week for the audience. Medi Aparicio, this is Anthony Twan Corral. We are buzzer beaters. Anyway, so get into it. What we're going to talk about tonight, the Kuminga article that came out from ESPN, that was unbelievably revealing. So we're going to go ahead and get your take, Twan, as to
Yep.
where's the issue? Is it more on the Kuminga side? Is it more on the organization side? Is this like a black eye on the organization, how this was all handled? I just want to get your take on that. The next thing we're going to talk about are, the team has been playing pretty decently, but they're essentially, I've only won two. Wait, they beat the Phoenix Suns, they beat the Memphis Grizzlies, then they to
The Lakers
the Lakers, to the Kings, the Spurs,
last
you
night.
know, and last night, right? So 5 games, I think they're 2-3 without Curry. So kind of want to get your take on their rotations. How you think the team is doing. It kind of, I got to see this way of the team kind of meshing together, even without the superstars. And I think, like, we talked about with the Denver Nuggets earlier on when Jokic was out. I've seen this as a blessing in disguise because a lot of these guys are getting the time. And, of course, the Warriors have shipped out, three players, Kuminga and Buddy Hield and Trace Jackson Davis. So their bench is a lot shorter. So there's going to be a lot more playing time for a
Yeah.
pretty deep bench, but their big three superstars are not playing. So we're going to talk about that. I want to get your take on, Kerr's rotations, kind of how the team is doing without, the big, two, if you will. Right.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I wanted to talk about is, given where things are at, Curry is coming back soon, but what should the Warriors be doing at this point? Right. There's a lot of thought that they should just be tanking, but it might be too late to tank because of where they're at in the standings, and the teams below them haven't really, they haven't really been trying to get any higher because a lot of them did fire sales anyway. So we're going to talk about all that, bro. So the first things first. Anything else that you want to bring up, bro?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you real quick before we started.
Yeah,
I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up.
yeah.
Did you watch the Super Bowl?
I did watch the Super Bowl. Yes,
Did you watch the halftime show?
I did watch the halftime show.
What was your opinion of the halftime show?
I actually kind of liked that halftime show, bro. I thought it
Okay.
was. So let me tell you something, bro. And I know we're a basketball, podcast, but this is a sports talk too, right? We'll dibble and dabble in other things, but I'll tell you, as a Latino myself, right?
Hmm.
I thought that he put a lot of thought into this. There was
Yes.
a lot going on, okay,
Yeah.
and I think the show was made for TV. It wasn't made for the live audience to see because there's so much going on, bro. I
Yeah.
mean, the people who were there, like, luckily there's a big jumbotron screen up there for people to kind of maybe see and hear what the TV's showing. But you're forced to, you're kind of looking both ways. You want to see what's going on from a big picture standpoint, and then you're kind of seeing the close up. I honestly thought that the show was well done. Honestly, I was very impressed in the production, the message. I think it captured the Latino kind of culture and the way we kind of go about it, and had a freaking wedding, on
Yeah.
stage. That was a real wedding. I thought this
Yeah.
was all like, just, and apparently this couple had invited, Bad Bunny to their wedding, and he
Yep.
couldn't do because of this, and therefore he invited them to come on. And
Yeah.
that was interesting, but there was a lot going on, bro. And
There was.
you had to really follow along what's going on. Then you had like cameo appearances from Pedro Pascal,
Yep.
Jessica Alba,
Yep.
Cardi B, or
Yep.
whoever else. Whoever else was there.
There was a couple of them in there. Yep.
Amazing, dude. I thought it was a well done halftime show. That's my opinion.
And just to add, there was a section there where Ricky Martin sings.
Dude, I didn't know who that was. I looked at him.
Yeah, yeah,
What's this
that's
guy,
Ricky
man?
Martin. Yeah, that's Ricky Martin, and the song that he sings is a
Yeah.
song that's basically begging the powers that be not to do to Puerto Rico or to any country. I guess they
Yeah.
weren't specific with the country, to do to them what they've done to Hawaii, which is strip them of their culture, strip them of their. That's what the song in essence was, and I thought it was beautifully done. Um,
I believe I agree.
there's a lot of hatred I'm hearing, and I know this isn't politics, but I just wanted to say that, it made me feel grateful to be a minority, because one of the advantages that you get into being a minority is that I think you can not only empathize, but you can relate with the struggles that different cultures have,
Yeah.
entering a different country, and, having language challenges and having cultural challenges. And it made me proud, and I really enjoyed the show. with you, I thought it was well done. I thought out of all the halftime shows that I've seen, this one was specifically made for TV. You could tell it was made for TV,
Absolutely.
and I just thought he did a hell of a job. And, and I would welcome, if you want to entertain other cultures and K-pop is a growing,
For
medium,
sure.
and whether or not you want to do that. And I just thought it was well done. And, and I'm sad for the people that are angry about it, and feel like, that somehow minorities are taking something away from them and all that. And again, I don't want to get into politics, but I agree with you. I thought it was well
So,
done and I really enjoyed it.
so Twan, we're not a political podcast. We have the
Yeah.
other arm that does that, right?
Yeah, correct.
So what I can
And I
tell
don't even
you,
know how that other arm feels about what we
I don't know. I haven't even asked, right?
Yeah,
But we
yeah.
know that Guillermo is a conservative, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
I don't know if he 100% believes everything that the Conservative Party, believes in. I believe in a little bit of both, which is why I'm independent.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily have to align myself blindly to a party, right? So just letting you know. But what I want to say before we get into it, and we definitely don't want to spend too much time on this, but
Yeah,
you brought it up, and I want to give you my opinion on something. I think that the overall consent, the overall population of America, people tend to forget that the minorities were here first, bro.
yeah,
Right? And
yeah.
and the Indians were here, right?
Well, they're right, so they're native. They're not immigrants,
Right, right. The
but
natives
they
were
are the
here.
minority. Yeah,
They are the minority, but they were here
yeah,
first, right? And then, of
yep,
course, the Latinos are a mix of the indigenous and the Spanish, right? That have come over
yeah,
here, and that's how we became who we are, right?
yeah,
And then you have a bunch of people over, since the colonies formed America and all this and that, that at the time was very English, right? And of course, an amalgamation of a lot of other cultures. But then you had the blacks come here from, unfortunately due to slavery, right? So it's, we have become a melting pot of a nation. And I think a lot of people tend to forget that. And a lot of people I think are angered about this are not from that, they're not immigrants. At least
yeah,
they don't think they are, but
yes,
I guarantee you they are some
yes,
way, somehow, right?
yes,
But I
yeah,
think they need to be reminded that we're not just one, unilateral, homogeneous race in the US. We are an amalgamation, a melting pot of a lot of others. So I
correct.
think that was a great, gentle reminder that, you know, Bad Bunny did.
Yeah,
And, dude, I gotta tell you something, bro. As much as I like that show, I don't understand one freaking word that guy says, bro.
it's
And
hard.
that's it's
It's
hard to
hard.
understand, right? But
Yeah,
but the overall, feel of it and how it was done, the production of it, I thought it was outstanding. I wish
yeah,
I just could understand everything he said. They
yeah,
should probably have subtitles of what he says,
yeah,
man, so
yeah.
that everybody kind of captures what he's saying, right? Maybe even translate it. That might have been a good touch for
Yeah,
them to
well,
translate,
in fairness,
right?
when Kendrick Lamar did his, it wasn't like I understood every word he said either. So,
Right, man.
yeah,
So hey,
cool,
so
cool.
so for those of you that were waiting for us to talk about hoops, sorry we took a little aside here.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
don't want
Just
to make it a political thing,
no, we don't. But
but
it's two Latinos having a basketball show. I'd be remiss in at least not bringing that up. I thought
yeah.
that was an important event, and something mentioning. That's all.
Yeah, and dude, and of course he called out all the nations, right? All the Hispanic nations as well as the Americas. Everybody,
Yeah,
every country in that makes up the Americas, right?
y-
The U.S., the
yeah,
Central America, and then the South America, and named every freaking. That was amazing that he actually called everybody out and didn't even
yeah,
stumble on that. That's
yeah,
amazing, right? So he called out Costa Rica for you, and
yeah.
also Peru,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
El Salvador, right? So we are
yeah,
all, and of course, Guillermo's Panamanian, so they called out Panama too. So
yeah,
dude, we're all one happy big family here. We're happy that
absolutely.
that we all got the shout outs. But I thought overall, I thought it was a well done
Yeah,
halftime show. And I know they're gonna be haters. No one's ever gonna like everything 100%, right?
correct,
But I think
correct.
the majority of people like this, and you can see by how many views this thing has.
Yeah,
So
a lot of.
all right, bro. All
Cool.
right.
Moving on.
So let's
All right,
let's
your
get into
first
it. All right.
question.
So bro, so you read that article about Jonathan Kuminga and the whole, breakup of that organization and kind of like what's the sour taste I think both parties have about that whole relationship, that kind of formed 5 years ago and how it ended. I wanted to kind of get your take as to, you know, who's really to blame here, if there is one party to blame on this whole thing, because I thought when I read through that thing, man, I gave you my opinion about Kuminga, that I thought that he's one of these kids that I think is an emotional guy, right? And I think that he resents the organization for a lot of the mixed messages that he got, right? And that's what they were. It was kind of definitely painting that picture that he was getting a lot of mixed messages, mainly because you know Joe Lacob definitely was behind him, wanting to draft him, even though maybe some other parties wanted Franz Wagner, right? But when the time came to make the selection, Joe Lacob was pushing for Jonathan Kuminga, and of course, Bob Myers and others just said, "Yeah, we can't, dispute that." And maybe they didn't, deep down inside, they probably thought something else, but they didn't want to, like, kind of go against their boss, right? And so they conformed and essentially gave in, right? But the bottom line is that this created a rift, and it created a rift over time, because Jonathan Kuminga, as athletic as he is, he does have the shortcomings because he hasn't been playing basketball that long. And of course, the Warriors system requires that the players know how to play the overall game, rebounding, passing, cutting, you know, all of the things, defense, all of the read and react offense, right? And you have to have a certain skill set to be able to be successful in this. And I think that's what Kerr was trying to preach. And for whatever reason, Minga only took it sometimes and didn't apply it all times. He probably thought his way was the right way, and he thought that his way was needed for this team. And I think that's partially right too. So there's a lot of blame here. So I just want to get your take. I kind of want to set the stage as to what the whole overall article was about. But I wanted to get your take, bro.
Yeah. So my take is blame's a hard word, right? For years and for decades, organizations have had to sometimes decide whether the athletic player is better than the kind of natural player. I will say, the
Yeah.
player that takes the game from a thinking level. Jordan was an athletic player. Kobe was an athletic player.
Yep.
These players are very athletic, and
Yep.
look at where they are in the pantheon of the world of basketball, right? You're talking top 5 players. So I can understand why someone would fall in love with Kuminga's athleticism, right?
Yep.
I can understand that. However, there's a couple of things that, I have concern with. Number one was he only really played 1 year of kind of upper level basketball, which was the 1 year that he was in the G League, right? He never played in college. He went straight to the G League. He
Yep.
played a year. So number one is his basketball acumen had yet to be
Developed.
assessed. Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, we didn't even get to development, right? Which is a mistake they also did with James Wiseman, right? James Wiseman
Yes.
played about 3 games of college, and then let's bring him board. So my thing is, look, I don't want to point blame, but I would say that my concern is that Lacob needs to let the basketball people make basketball decisions. I understand he's going to fall in love with a player. I understand that, at that particular point in time, the Warriors organization could do no wrong. They had been winning. They could, it gave the appearance like they couldn't make a wrong choice. But when you look at the teams that we had early on, and when you look at the difference that Mark Jackson offense versus Steve Kerr's offense, one of the reasons Mark Jackson was dismissed is because he loved to play iso ball, get on the
Yep.
corner, beat your man, get to the hole, and Curry can do it now, but he's not that kind of player. Clay wasn't that kind of player. Draymond Green wasn't really that much of an offensive force. So we didn't really have, you look at Bogut and Iguodala was probably our truest ISO player in that kind of structure. Because
Yeah.
even Harrison Barnes, who was a good player, wasn't exactly an ISO player. And
No.
so when you look at the offense that Kerr developed, it was meant, and I don't want to say that athletes aren't thinkers, but they can be both. But it was more about thinking where to be, find the open space, cut when necessary, distribute the ball, all of these things that you have to do as a whole player, not just as a piece of a player. And so when Lacob made these decisions, let's go with, and I would assume that he also chose Wiseman, although I'm not sure. But, when he said, let's go with Kuminga, not only was he going with the athlete, he was going with a player that fundamentally, at that point in time and proven over 5 years, played fundamentally different than everybody else on the court, right? He just
Yes.
played different. And whether Kerr liked him or not, Kerr wasn't going to change the offense to suit Kuminga. The
Yes.
champion there is Curry, Clay, Draymond. He's going to play the offense that fits them. It's a proven system. He's won 4 championships, with it. And so I don't know if Kerr was necessarily like, screw Kuminga. but he's trying to make square peg round hole. Kuminga, you got to do this. You got to do this. You got to do this. And for whatever reason, we also have to take into account, and I don't know, maybe I don't know. I don't know how long Kuminga, he's from the Congo. I don't know
Yeah.
how much time he has spent in the US. I don't know how acclimated he was with kind of our way of speaking and our culture and our habits and that type of thing. So I don't know if any of that was getting in the way. I think it's possible. I'm not sure. But Kuminga, for whatever reason, wasn't abiding. He just wasn't doing that, and so Kerr, in essence, punished him, didn't play him. If you're not going to rebound and you're not going to pass and you're not going to do this, that you don't fit. And then there was one thing in the article that I found fascinating was, I guess one time after a game, Kerr was, or maybe on the radio station, Kerr was talking to the reporter and basically said something along the lines like, hey, all the players get rotated out unless you're a star, implying
He's on star.
You're not a star. And
Right.
it's obvious he's not a star, but he took offense to that. And to me, so that tells me a lot, Eddie. Like, to me, like, if you say that to someone like Draymond Green or Curry or even Clay, they're going to go, oh, I'm not a star, huh? I'll show you what I am, And he took it more like, why has he got to talk about me that way? Why? He got hurt, like it impacted him. And it tells me a lot about his mentality. He needs to be coddled more than maybe your average player.
Yeah, but to be fair though, bro, I mean, he was a kid when he first started
he was.
here. 19 years old, man.
Yep.
19 years old. I can remember back when I was 19. I don't remember everything about 19, but I'm a far cry right now from 19. I mean, it's not a fair comparison because, that was like, 30 plus years ago, but you mature a lot.
Yes.
From 19 to 23 to 24, which is where Kuminga's at right now. Right. And for somebody to hear, a lot of the criticism that maybe he never was used to kind of dealing with in his career because he was always so explosive and he was always probably the more dominant guy on the court. And, coming from, another culture, some of these factors might factor in, right? But the kid, I already knew, I could just tell by the way he is. It's a sensitive guy, man. I can see that. He a lot of Kevin Durant in him, bro. All right. He just is. He's that personality. And Steve Kerr, that's one of his superpowers, as a coach, is that he's able to connect with a lot of different personality types. I mean, you can connect with the Draymond Green, who's a far cry from the Steph Curry. You can connect with the Klay Thompson, who's a complete difference between those two guys. Kevin Durant, you can argue, did he really connect with those guys, right? But I'm just saying he's able to be versatile in being able to connect with you. And the article pointed out that he had a hard time connecting with this guy because, Jonathan Kuminga sometimes would not even respond right away. And sometimes when he did respond, it was kind of very quick and, kind of dismissive, right? It was, and it was very evident that there's a lot of resentment built that built up over the years. But I can tell you that I think what also happened is that I think Kuminga and his agent recognized that the Warriors, had some deficiencies in their team where they lacked somebody like him, right? And even Mike Dunleavy in the article pointed out that they needed more physicality and more athleticism, and he was untouchable, right? And I think he was saying that at the time because the Lakers really, really bonded with this guy and really, really liked Jonathan Kuminga. So I think Kuminga felt empowered, that the owner of the team is behind me. And, maybe he got disappointed when, even with that relationship, he wasn't able to convince Kerr to go ahead and play Kuminga more, right? And, there's a lot of things that you can say that transpired here, right? But a lot of resentment kicked in. I got to give it to him. He was very professional throughout the whole process. He wasn't creating a big stink of it.
He was very mature in that sense.
Absolutely. And then, Jimmy Butler's, becoming a mentor, like a true mentor to him. And, even Jimmy Butler even kind of openly said that, the way that the organization has kind of treated, there's like a double standard here. You don't understand, like, there's kind of mixed messages here, right? Because, there's one thing they're saying is like, this guy's the future. We can pass the torch with this guy because he has such unbelievable athleticism and skill set and he can score. And he got really emboldened, I think, after the series last year when, the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Curry got injured with his hamstring and then the team was having a hard time scoring. And all of a sudden, this guy comes in and scores 30, 20, 18, 30, and doing it very, very easily, bro. Right. Now that probably made him feel like, okay, dude, I told you, right? And the age is like, I told you, this is what you guys need. But yet your coach here, doesn't want to play him. And that doesn't make sense. You guys need this. And you guys not making sense. And then Kerr is saying, well, this guy, he needs to rebound more. He needs to do this more. He needs to do this more. And then he could be someone like an Aaron Gordon, right? That's kind of his ceiling. It's kind of like, and Aaron Gordon is a really good player and a really good comparison. But I think Kuminga and his agent thought Aaron Turner, they thought he was more, right? And the team robbed them of that. And there became this whole rift. And the rift just became uglier and uglier. And in my opinion, bro, this leaves somewhat tarnish a little bit to me on how the rest of the NBA can perceive, the Warriors organization, how it's run, because you have the Draymond Green example, right? Creating this monster. You have the Kevin Durant not wanting to be here anymore for a reason, right? And it was all pointed to the organization and how they handled things, right? So it's kind of like it's created this perception that I think the NBA players are taking note of, and that's what's disappointing, potentially disappointing, right? And now as we're embarking into this new chapter of the post dynasty era of the Warriors, right? Because it's coming to a twilight. It's in its twilight, right? In the next 2 years, this is going to be a completely different team. They're going to have to figure out how to get better. And you're right about when Jerry West left,
Yeah.
this whole thing completely changed. And I think it's because when Jerry West says something, he has a proven track record, people listen. And maybe someone like a Lacob would essentially give into Jerry West sometimes because he has a track record of being successful and he's a great reputation in the NBA. And
Yeah.
when they lost that, everybody else became a yes man to Lacob, and then therefore this kind of issue happened.
Well, I think that you stumbled on something. You started when you were talking, you started talking about how Lacob fell in love with Kuminga.
Yes.
And I think the tarnish on this organization right now is they've let emotion dictate decisions,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Because talk about Lacob falling in love with Kuminga. Don't want to let him go. That's an emotional response.
Very much so.
And then we talk about, and again, I don't know if this is a big deal or not, but the article talks about how someone in Kuminga's camp was stealing food or taking too much food.
Yes.
Or whatever.
What's that?
Yeah,
Is that the definition of petty, dude? What the hell is that?
well, here's it's not, but let me tell you why it's wrong. Because you've got Draymond Green blasting the organization on his podcast. You've got Draymond Green interviewing Kevin Durant and throwing Myers under the bus.
Yep.
You've got Draymond Green, getting, physical with other players and recorded and not really punished.
Yes.
So you look at all of this and you go, this doesn't make sense, man. Like, you're not going to come down on Draymond for all of this stuff, but you're going to call out Kuminga because they took too much food.
Right.
Like that just doesn't add up. If you're going to be hard asses, then be hard asses across the board. And if you're going to be lenient,
be consistent.
Yeah, exactly. Just be consistent. Exactly. Yes. And so to me, that's where the tarnish is. Kerr is in love with Draymond, is in love with Curry, so he doesn't want to change the offense or impact them or make them go out of their comfort zone. So he asks all of the younger players to do that because he doesn't have as much of an emotional connection. And I think that is where the root of the tarnish is people are reacting with emotion, and they need to kind of stop. They need to analyze what the team is. What does it need? Where do we go? Now, fundamentally, I'm in agreement that I don't think Kuminga was ever going to fit in this offense. It just wasn't going to happen. He's not that kind of player.
Unless they change the offense.
Well, no, but in the way the offense is currently done, he was never going to fit. Like, it just was never going to work. And so Franz Wagner would have been a better choice in terms of the way he plays, but to me, they made a lot of emotional decisions, and it's blown up in their face. And for the greatness of Bill Walsh, his whole thing was you got to keep them at an arm's distance.
Yep.
You better let a player go a year too early, better than a year too late.
Yep.
And they had decisions to make, and they didn't make them in a timely fashion. And now we're seeing the impact of that. So if there's any tarnish, that's the way that I'm looking at it. Emotion.
Good points, bro. And by the way, this dovetails into the next part of what I wanted to get your opinion on, because you brought up, Kerr's system and how Kuminga didn't fit, right? Well, now the Warriors have Porzingis on the team, who's going to play probably after the All-Star break, right?
Yep.
They no longer have Trace Jackson Davis. They no longer have Kuminga. They no longer have Buddy Hield, who was a locker room guy. Jimmy Butler's buddy on the. They made a bobblehead about these two guys,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So as much as frustrating as Buddy Hield was on the floor because he was inconsistent from his shooting standpoint, he's a good guy, and he definitely was a professional, and at times saved the Warriors, especially last season in the playoffs. He saved them, right?
Yep.
You can argue that, right? But now that they have a shorter bench, right, and now you're seeing, we're kind of back to the days of when we were watching the Warriors emerge, right, to become
Yes.
like this team that was on the rise, and had these like interesting pieces and how they all kind of work together and the kind of underdog mentality, right?
Yep.
This is kind of what I'm seeing again, bro. I feel like I honestly, bro, I got to tell you, I look forward to watching the Warriors now
It's a
because
little
this is
fun. It's different.
interesting. It's very different, right? You're not expecting championships now. You're expecting like kind of a start of a somewhat of a rebuild, if you will. It's not necessarily a
Yep.
rebuild, but maybe a
Yep.
retool, right? And
Yep.
and all these players that didn't get a lot of playing time, they're forced to get playing time. You're seeing how well these guys are playing, right? And
Yep.
the guys that we pointed out a couple of podcasts ago, if we were to go ahead and pick and choose the team and the rotation pieces and who we want to keep, I said De'Anthony Melton, Santos. Both these guys are getting a lot of minutes now, right? And then we also talked about Pat Spencer.
Correct.
Pat Spencer is now on the team. He's no longer a two-way player. He's on the team. He got a contract signed. We don't know what the details are. I don't know. But
Yeah.
these are the three players that we talked about. Of course, Will Richard too, right?
Yep.
But now, Podziemski, we thought, Pat Spencer might be a better fit in Kerr's system. Podziemski is like the connector is what they call him, right? But there's arguments that he's only a connector if he has other good players on the team that kind of help him shine a little bit,
Correct.
right? But I wanted to get your take as to the rotations that you're seeing today. What are the things that you like about the rotations? What are the things that you don't like about the current rotations? What are some of the players that you like to see more of and why? I just want to kind of get your take as the current rotations and kind of what you think the Warriors should be doing moving forward.
Yeah. So the interesting part about the rotation that I see right now is that outside of Guy, the rotation, if you look at it, is primarily constituted of what I call thinkers, right? Spencer's a thinker, Post is a thinker, Horford is a thinker, all of these players, they're more thinkers than they are athletes,
Yes. Yes.
and so Kerr hasn't really changed his methodology to fit anything. What he's changed is the hunger. These players are a lot more hungry
Yes.
than the older players. Now I'll take Horford out of it. I wouldn't say Horford's hungry, but you can tell, Guy's hungry. You can tell De'Anthony Melton's hungry. You can tell Paz is hungry. You can tell Spencer's hungry. These guys are hungry. They're going at it. And so what I like about right now, what we're doing is we're giving them exposure. We're
Yes.
deciding whether they're good enough or bad enough. One of the downsides of getting Kristaps is that I think it's severely going to impact Post's playing time. I don't know if Post is going to play at all. And one of the downsides of getting Post was it severely impacted TJD's playing time, right? And TJD went off to Toronto, started with a double-double. We'll see what he becomes. But TJD was also another one of those players that was maybe more athlete than thinker. He was just more athletic.
Yeah.
And I would like to see Kerr find a way to utilize these athletes.
Yes.
To not, but fundamentally, there's a problem. Like, you cannot have Guy, Pods, and Draymond on the court together. Like, it's really limited in terms of what you can do offensive. As offensive scorer of the bunch, and all he can shoot the three, he can attack the hoop. He's a big, so he's probably the best of the bunch, which is why I would like to see him play more. But
he's been starting more though, bro.
He's been starting, and he had 5 fouls against the Spurs, and they left him in there, and have at it. So I'd like to see Kerr try to take advantage of this and try to find athletes and fit an athlete in there somehow. Fit a big wing. You got this kid that we picked up from Thunder.
Yeah.
From the Thunder.
Leon.
Leon. Give him a minute or two. Let's see what he can do. Let's have at it. But right now, I still think that Kerr's developed this team to be kind of like the way the team's always been. They're just, like I said, hungrier.
Yeah, and I gotta say that I have been encouraged in what I have seen, especially against, the teams that are better than them, namely the Suns, right? Without Curry and without Butler, the Suns are better than,
Yes.
the Warriors, right?
Yes.
But to be as they beat the Suns, right? On the road, which is impressive. They actually played very well against the Lakers, and you can say that the Lakers were without Luka Doncic, right? And of course the Warriors were without Jimmy Butler and freaking, Stephen Curry. But what you see as far as the pieces that haven't had that much playing time and haven't had that much, practice time together, they hung with them. And it's because they had a lot of hunger, a lot of fire, a lot of just they were playing hard, man. And they were playing like, and then, of course, Memphis, we had no business winning that game, but they won it. In the last 30 seconds, they won it, right? They were down by, 18, 19 points at one time, and they came back and won that game. And it's unbelievable, in an unbelievable fashion. I thought that was an unbelievable game, man. And then, of course, they go up against, the Spurs, and they actually were playing very well in the game. They were up by like 16 in the third quarter. Oh my God, they're going to win. And then they kind of ran out of gas a little bit, right? So, and it goes to show you the Spurs are a serious, legitimate contender.
Yeah, I don't know if they ran out of gas as much as they ran out of talent.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, there's just a ceiling on the time. I mean, you're playing. Well, Wembanyama's just we could have a whole show just on Wembanyama. I swear to God, that
Beast,
guy.
dude. He's a beast. I mean, Did
you hear what Mullins said about him?
No.
So on the post-game interview, Chris Mullins said, if he continues down this track, he'll be the best player in the history of the NBA.
Dude, and we said that. In one of our podcasts a long time ago. We were talking about the Mount Rushmore.
And now we got a Hall of Famer agreeing with us.
Exactly. We said that, dude. This guy is on that trajectory of being the best of all time if he stays healthy, because this guy is unbelievable talent. He dribbles like a guard, could shoot like a guard.
Unstoppable.
He is unstoppable.
Yes.
And you can see how much he affects the shots. People see ghosts when he's on the floor.
Yeah,
dude.
just standing there. They don't want to
they rush their shots because and he's like, defending and blocking 3-point shots now too, right? I mean, remember in the gold medal game, he was the one that almost took out Curry's, game-winning shot there.
Yep.
And you can see the slow. I mean, you can see how high that guy got and how barely Curry got that shot off to win it, right? So this is
fingernails,
dude. He's an unbelievable talent. If he stays healthy, I agree with Mullen, and we called it a few podcasts ago that this guy is on the trajectory of being the best of all time.
Yeah.
If he stays healthy.
And
he's young enough.
He scored 25 points in a quarter.
Yes.
And if you're able to do that for 4 quarters, guess how much points you
notice, bro, right? I mean, it's like, dang.
Hey, I'm not saying it is, but I'm going, dude, this guy, he's a monster.
He is a monster, man. He is a monster. So, all right, bro. So I want to ask you, bro, getting back to the Warriors.
Yes.
The last question, what should they be doing, bro? I mean, given where things are at, the state of the team, what should they be doing in these final 20 plus games? Should they be trying to climb as much as they can, or should they be doing more of what they're doing right now and essentially, give Curry more time off, maybe play him sporadically. They definitely need to see what they have in Porzingis, Curry, and Draymond Green playing together, right? You need to see that for next season, because right now you're really playing for next season once Butler comes back, because then you have this interesting 4 pieces that can play together and see how you play. And of course, we haven't even talked about Draymond Green, whether he should continue starting and come off the bench. But all of this, I wanted to kind of get your take. What should the Warriors be doing?
So a little controversial here. The biggest concern I have about the players playing right now and when Curry comes back is the amount of reverence or deference they're going to have when Curry comes back.
Yes.
Right. They're going to defer to Curry. They're going to give the ball to Curry. They're going to let Curry, do what he needs to do, and they're going to play off of him.
Yes.
I genuinely think that for the rest of this year, the message needs to be Curry's not the guy. Curry's just the guy that's there in case when you need him, when it's appropriate within the structure of the offense. I want to see these guys push themselves, even when Curry's on the court, to play as though he's not, right? He's just the guy. It is, and it's a little controversial, right? And this is also assuming that Kristaps isn't playing at his best. Because if Curry and Kristaps are playing at their best and we can make the playoffs, then maybe you got to scrap what I'm saying, right? But I would like to see Guy continue to develop. Moody has been playing very well. I'd like to see him continue to develop. But somehow Curry's greatness shrinks them. It makes them less than, when he's on the court. I don't mean that in a sense like his gravity makes them more open, but they seem more reluctant. They don't seem right now. I'm starting to see a trend. When the fourth quarter comes and it's getting late, what's the similarities between the Phoenix game and the Memphis game is when it started getting to crunch time, these guys were everywhere. They were maniacal. They were playing defense. They were stealing the ball. They were creating chaos. And then lo and behold, they pulled it out, right? They weren't able to do it with the Lakers, weren't able to do it with the Spurs, but they were able to do it twice. And I think that if Curry's on the court, I don't know how that looks. I don't think it looks the same. Not that Curry shouldn't be on the court, but I think the message should be Curry, be one of the guys, not the guy.
Yeah, and that has to come from the coaching staff because one of the things that article revealed with the Kuminga article, that we were talking about in the first part of this podcast is that there was one particular section that was talking about when Terry Stotts took over the coaching for a game or a practice, I forgot what it was, but he was the whole plan and was to go ahead and for the guys that are on the floor, the starters, everything funneled through Curry and Butler and make things happen, right? And then when the second team came about, it's like give the ball to Pat Spencer and just run pick and roll, and that right there is the part that pissed off Kuminga because him being the scorer, there was no mention of him. Let's get the ball to Kuminga, and that's what he was hoping to hear, right? So for them to do what you are saying, it has to come from the coaching staff. They have to say, "Hey, look,
and it has to have buy-in from Curry." So I think there's a couple things. You touched on it. Number one, I think Draymond needs to play less. Right? I think Draymond needs to come in.
Well, he played very well last night, bro.
Oh well, he
played very well last night.
He always played very well against Wemby. Wemby has problems with guys of his stature and his size because he can't really beat him around the perimeter. He's not strong enough to move him. He can get over him. I mean, if you see him shoot his fadeaways, he's like 3 feet taller than freaking.
Right.
Draymond can't do nothing against that. But I'm saying is Draymond has had a good history, and I think that him playing well is obviously he plays well. I'd say every 10 to 15 games now. Not it's not every.
Well,
game.
it's when he's up against somebody that matters. That's when he really turns.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so. But I think a little less of Draymond, get some buy-in from Curry. Hey, Curry, let's defer to some of these other guys, and let's see what we got here. Let's see if they can carry us, maybe, every once in a while you sit Curry during crunch time, just to see what these guys do. Like, hey, there's no savior coming, man. Like, figure it out. Because if I don't want him to tank, I've never been a believer in tanking. I hate tanking.
It's too late for them to even tank.
Well, no, but I actually think that tanking, if you believe in karma, it's just, it's
the wrong way to play.
You're going to fail. Ultimately, you're going to fail. So don't tank. But if Kristaps isn't playing and we don't have magic in a bottle with those two for whatever reason, then I think that these guys need to start taking more initiative, more like, hey, Curry's sitting down this fourth quarter. It's on you guys. Like go figure it out. And then I think that they're either going to shrink or they're going to grow. And then you can determine what you want to do the following.
Sink or swim, bro. It's sink or swim.
Sink or swim.
So let me ask you something then, bro. I mean, for the rest of the season, should they be trying still to go for the 6th seed, or just stay and just be a playing team and just get as high as possible in the playing team in the playing tournament?
So I think they should be trying, but I think it should be trying with a purpose. We're trying to make everybody to see what we got.
Yeah.
What else do we have? If they can get us there, we'll have a fresh Curry. Hopefully we'll have a fresh Kristaps. Hopefully we'll have a fresh Draymond, and they know what to do in those times. We know, but to get there, you guys are going to have to get us there.
Yes.
Right. That's one that I would.
I'm with you, bro. I'm hoping they can do it, and maybe that's their plan all along because these young bucks are getting a lot of playing time, and we're seeing what some of these guys are made of. And I got to tell you, the guys are really standing out. Are Guy Santos and De'Anthony Melton, man. And of course, Moody here, right? Moody's been playing well. You got sprinkles of Quentin Post, who, his shot seems to have come back a little bit, right? Podziemski has actually impressed me from a shooting standpoint. His shooting has actually gotten a lot better, although we went cold last night. But overall, I would say that his 3-point shooting has dramatically improved since, the beginning of the season where he was clanking left and right. He's gotten a lot better on that front, right? So I would say, Horford, I think, has been very good on this team. This is what they were hoping to get early in the season, but he had the sciatica issue, and therefore, he had to take some time off. He's an old man now, bro, right? He's pushing 40, right? So he's got
you still have
old
Seth,
man need their Geritol and need their NAS, need the breaks, bro. So that's what he
and
needs,
you still
man.
have Steph Curry, who also has a sciatica.
Yeah, he's got the
Him-
same
yeah,
issue. It's like,
He's won. And
yeah,
him and Steph, I believe him and Steph are yet to play together because the one game he played, Steph was out.
wow, and then
They haven't played together yet. The
Wow.
actual Splash Brothers. But
Exactly.
yeah, so to me, that's what I'd like to see. Let's figure out. Let's keep playing Gee. Let's rest Draymond. Let's keep playing Spencer. Or let Spencer and Podziemski fight for the minutes.
Yeah.
Let's put Melton at the other guard spot. Let's give Horford some rest because he's old, and let Post play some of that time. Let's figure it out. Right now, I think Kerr gets too cute against the competition. Like, he'll say, "Oh, I can't. Like, this is not a Post game, or this is not a Pods game, or this is not a." I think
he overthinks things too much.
Yeah, I just think he needs to stop. Like, you guys need to figure it out. This is not a you game. I don't think you're going to do well, but guess what? I'm putting you out.
I'm gonna put you in and figure it out. You have to figure it out.
Prove me wrong. Yeah. And so
Exactly.
I think that's what we need to do. And I think Curry needs to, for the sake of himself, for this team, he needs to start taking a little bit of a back seat. He can always put on his cape whenever we need.
At least for this season. At least for this season.
For this season. Next season, we'll have.
That's a whole different ball game.
A whole different ball of wax. I'm talking about this season. And if we make it to the play-in, if we make it to the postseason, then we can reassess and figure out. Because at that point, I think we'll be clear on who our key players are from the people we just mentioned.
Rotation.
Yeah, from the rotation, and then you just sprinkle in Curry, you sprinkle in Kristaps, KP, and you sprinkle in Horford, and you sprinkle in Draymond, and then who else is going to be in that mix? And you should have a better picture of that.
And then you got sprinkle GP too, because we even talked about him, and that guy played really well last night.
Yes,
and he in bursts. That guy is really, really good. So this could be an open tryout right now for, let's figure out who are the main rotation pieces. The 3 rotation pieces that are going to come off the bench, and then who are going to be the starters once Curry and Kristaps into the fold, and Draymond, is he going to be a bench player or is he going to be a starter? But, with those 3, you figure out the next 5 that are going to be deserving to play as rotational pieces in the playoffs. That's what I think. That's what they should be doing as the focus for the rest of the season. So,
and take you where it will,
where it goes, right?
Yeah, wherever it goes,
for next season.
Let's go. But I do find it. They've got, the Clippers gave up Zubac. There's not a lot of good teams behind us.
Yes.
Harden's gone. There's not a lot of good. We should pretty much fall into the plan.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we should. So just my message is, don't blow it and get better. See if you can get us to the 6. If you can get us to the 6th seed, hallelujah.
Yes.
But we should.
So you're motivating these players by saying, I need 5 of you guys to stand out, so that you are now my rotation and starters for the playoffs, right? And that's open trial right now, open season. This is what I'm trying to figure out. So
forget Superman. Superman's there. We know what he can do.
Yeah.
Even
exactly.
look, and Superman's not here right now.
Exactly. Right on, brother. Well, hey, man, we are out of time here, man. But we want to go ahead and say thanks for listening to our podcast. I'm Midi Aparicio. This is Anthony Twankrow. We are Buzzer Beaters.
Hey, everybody, this is William Del Pilar, founder of Grumblings Media, and I want to say thank you for watching our content. If you want to support our all-volunteer efforts at Grumblings Media, smash the subscribe button right here. 100% free, and please consume and share our great content. Click either one of these 2 boxes for more of our work.